Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about the 7 bojjhangas in theory and practice, neither too briefly nor elaborately. If Sayadaw were to expand on the topic of the 7 bojjhangas, 1 month would not be enough. So he had to summarize so that the yogis would understand the most important points. And after completing discussing the bojjhangas, it's time to discuss the path factors, Maganga. Maganga is made up of, one word is Magga, and Magga means path or road. A road is something that has been opened for travel. So where do we take this road to? We travel this road to Avedita Sukha or Santi Sukha. And what is it that we travel this road with? We travel it by means of the practice. The word Maganga has 2 parts, Magga and Anga. And Magga means path or road. And this path has 8 parts. So these 8 parts are called Maganga, or path factors. The first is Samadeti Maganga. Second is Samasankappa Maganga. Third is Samavacha Maganga. The fourth is Samakamanta Maganga. The fifth is Sama-ajiva Maganga. Sixth is Sama-vayama Maganga. Seventh, Sama-sati Maganga. And eighth, Sama-samadhi Maganga. So there are 8 parts to this path. But in terms of groups, there are 3 groups, and therefore 3 parts if we look in that way. One group is Samavacha, Samakamanta, Sama-ajiva. Ajiva, that is one group of 3. And another group of 3 is Sama-vayama, Sama-sati, and Sama-samadhi. And then the remaining group is Samaditi and Sama-sankappa. So in terms of groups, there are 3, and these 3 groups are also called Sekha, or trainings. So there are 3 parts to training, 3 ways of training, and these are called also Maganga, which is a compound word in Pali. So Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. These 3 trainings are for eliminating the coarse things that are done or said to harm others. It is the training of Sila that dispels these. And then there's the coarseness that occurs in the mind, and also the roots of coarseness, the very seeds of coarse behavior. So there are these 3 levels of coarseness, and these trainings. The training of Sila eliminates the gross form of violations or transgressions that are physical and verbal. And the training of Samadhi is used to eliminate the wild behavior that occurs in the mind. The training of Panya Maganga, eliminates the very roots of wild behavior. So there are these three things to eliminate and three ways, therefore, to eliminate. And this is also called teaching. Vipassana in Pali. It's also called instruction. And these are trainings which make our physical, verbal, and mental behavior civilized. These three trainings or teachings, called sasana in Pali. Those who have not practiced or who have not developed the 8 path factors think they are difficult. The Buddha taught the theory, and if one approaches a true Kalyana Metta, a true spiritual friend, and practices systematically, then these 8 path factors are developed automatically. The Buddha said, Chattaro me bhikkhave aradam. So there are 4 things that are to be initiated. And these 4 things are the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 kinds of satipatthana. That means that every time a physical action arises, one has to apply ardent effort to observe it with steadfast observation. Kayanupassana satipatthana. Every time a feeling, vedana, feeling good or bad, arises, one has to apply ardent effort to observe it with steadfast observation. Vedana-nupassana satipatthana. Every time there's thinking, various types of consciousness, every time they arise, one has to observe them, applying ardent effort so that one has steadfast observation, chitta-nupassana satipatthana. And every time there is a process, a general object, every time something like that arises, one has to observe it with ardent effort and steadfast observation, dhammanupassana satipatthana. For the person who develops these 4 kinds of satipatthana systematically, the 8 path factors are automatically developed. There's nothing strange or extraordinary about it. So, how are the 8 path factors developed? How do they arise when we practice satipatthana? Let's say we put our mind on the abdomen, and the abdomen, as we breathe in or out, the abdomen expands, rises, and as we breathe out, it falls back down. So this rising is just the term that we use in whatever language we speak, rising or falling. So this rising or expanding and falling, these are manner. These are called in Pali akara. So they're or position is another word. So the form is the abdomen, the shape of the abdomen. That's one way of seeing. And rising and falling is the position or akara, the position that it's in. And then there's sabhava, the individual true nature. Among the basic 4 great elements that make up the body, the easiest one to see is Vayodhatu, the air element. And this manifests, or this shows itself as stiffness or tightness, movement, displacement. So there are these 3 santana. Sometimes we have to say what it is that appears when we report to the teacher. What is it that we see? The yogis have to say. And so one way of seeing is santana, or form. Another is the akara, or manner, and the third is sabhava, or individual true nature. And at the start, one isn't able to just follow every single rising and falling time and again. We catch some and we miss some. And we also, we can't catch the thinking that happens either. We can't catch it again and again. But we have to try to catch the rising and the falling and thinking when it occurs and feelings. And when we practice, eventually we become good. And sometimes the mind reaches, it contacts the abdomen. And sometimes it contacts the manner of the abdomen's rising and falling. At the start, this is good, because the mind is not going somewhere else. It's staying where we put it. And it is staying because of this effort that is made, virya. This is samavayama. That one makes the effort to make the mind stick to the object. So in this also, we have the energy of aiming is also being applied so that the mind will be in focus. So sometimes when we watch the abdomen, sometimes the mind sticks to the form of the abdomen, and this is good. Sometimes the mind sticks to the akara, the manner of rising or falling, and this too is not bad. Sometimes the mind falls on this expanding and collapsing of the abdomen. And so when this mind that is staying with the object, when we make the attempt to observe it, this mind is clean. So when this clean mind develops good energy, then sometimes we see true nature mixed in with the form or the manner. So one knows stiffness, the mind falls on stiffness, and at that moment one knows stiffness. And sometimes the mind falls on tightness, one knows the tightness. Sometimes the mind falls on movement, and one knows the movement. So one starts to know the true nature that is there. But it's not clean yet, because it's still sometimes mixed in with the form, the shape, or the akara, the manner. So the yogis just have to be patient. They have to be patient and observe and just keep on trying. So, and when the mind wanders, they have to observe it. And sometimes there will be aches and pains and so on. One also has to observe these. One's observation is not to remove discomfort, to remove pain, but it is to know. Sometimes teachers tell the yogis that they have to observe and get rid of it. And this is not what we're doing. We are just trying to do two things. We are trying to keep the mind from going somewhere else, and we are trying to know what the object is. So some people think that they have to get rid of pain, but this is not so. There is nothing in the text which say one has to remove pain. What is said is anupasana. Anupasana means repeatedly observing, noting and knowing. So one has to watch things, observe with patience. And at the start, we are making effort, virya, and this is correct effort. The mind isn't going somewhere else, and we are making effort not in order to develop unwholesomeness, but in order to keep the mind clean. So this is correct effort. And also sati sticks to the object. And this is correct sati. The mind also is collected on the object by samadhi, and this is correct too. So because these factors of virya, sati, and samadhi are correct, are right, there's an adjective used to describe these, which is samma. So there's samma, virya, samma sati, samma samadhi, right effort, right observation, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So the results arise immediately, because with virya, the kilesas have no chance to arise. And if they do arise, then one has to eliminate them by noting them, observing them. This is like preventing fires. With fire prevention, we have to set up, we have to take measures so that fire does not break out. But if it does break out, we have to put it out right away. So this is how we have to make effort in the practice. And if we are able to do like this, then the path factors of the group of samadhi maganga, is occurring. With the path factor of virya, kilesas have no chance to arise. They're not accepted. And with the path factor of sati, the mind is guarded. It is protected. With the path factor of samadhi, the mind falls collectedly on the object. And if one observes every second, then in 1 minute, that's 60 times that this samadhi group is being developed. If we just observe every other second, then in 1 minute there will be 30 times that the samadhi group is developed. And only if one calculates like this will one get the results. At the start of the practice, we have to work starting with an easy object. And in sitting, the rising and the falling of the abdomen is the easiest object, because the in-breath and the out-breath are there. And so the rising and the falling happens. So we put our mind on the abdomen and we wait there. And as soon as the rising arises, we make ardent effort to push the mind so that it gets there. As soon as the falling arises, we make effort pushing the mind so that it gets to that falling. The word atapa is used. That means one has to have ardent effort. And also the word vayama is used, which means trying, making effort. And this effort is called samavayama. So at the start, though, it's not very strong. Okay. So, but sometimes people really want to gain the Dhamma. They really want to know. So sometimes what happens is the zeal to get to the object, the chanda, is too great, is very strong. And at that time, our effort, virya, becomes excessive, and then we miss the object. On the other hand, sometimes the effort is too loose, too slack, and then the mind is not able to reach the object. So this is what happens at the start. There's either excess, too much effort, or not enough, a lack. And in order not to have excess effort or to have slack effort, one needs to use the jhanic factor of aiming. And that means to develop the ability to focus on the object accurately. And this aiming is called in Pali vitakka. Although it is sometimes translated as thinking. It's not thinking, it's more to aim or to focus the mind. Because of aiming, we are able to get the object into focus. So one has to also get the mind to be there. So on one hand, there's the energy that is needed to push the mind to the object. And on the other hand, there's the energy that is needed to aim the mind so that we can observe accurately. And when one gains practice, when one observes the rising, the mind is able to connect with it. It's as though it rubs against the object or hits it. And at that time, if the mind rubs against the object, connects with it, hits it, contacts it, then one becomes definite about what is there. So the energy of pushing the mind to the object and the energy of aiming the mind accurately must always be there. The yogi always has to apply these. And then what happens is the mind will hit the object and will become definite about what is there. So one must do this every second of the time, or at least every other second. One individual moment of this effort in aiming and contacting the object is not much. It doesn't have much strength as just one moment. But when one moment and another are next to each other, connect closely, then they become very strong. And this is what one has to do. This virya makes the mind so that it doesn't get cold and gelid. It keeps laziness from entering the mind. It heats up the mind, and then the mind doesn't become cold and stiff. If one applies effort as soon as the object arises, so that the mind gets there, then the mind won't be sleepy. This is the immediate result that we get. And when the aim is there, so that the mind is focused, this aiming opposes tina mida, sloth and torpor. Sloth and torpor cause the mind to lose all its energy, and therefore the mind becomes sluggish. But with aiming, the mind is fresh. And so the first thing that one has to fight off is this sleepiness, sloth and torpor. Virya is what gets the upper hand over laziness. Virya can get the better of laziness. And vitakka, or aiming, keeps the mind fresh. Without aiming, the mind can become like cold butter, unworkable. But vitakka keeps the mind fresh and alert. So every time one observes, these qualities must be there of effort and aiming. And then automatically one's mind will connect with the object and one will become definite about what it is. When one observes the rising or the falling or other objects, one will be definite about what one has observed. Previously, because of not being able to connect with the object accurately, rub against it, the mind was unsure. The mind was wavering, and this is called vicikkecha, doubt. But when the mind is able to rub against the object and contact it, this conquers vicikkecha, or doubt, and this is the immediate benefit gained. So at this time, virya is there, sati is developed, samadhi is also developed. And then there's the factor of aiming, so that the mind starts to rub against the object and one's observation is effective and accurate. So how will it be at that time? Then when the mind observes the rising and it observes it effectively, then one will come to know what is there. One knows. When the mind observes the falling, it will observe effectively and know what is there. So this knowledge, this knowing, is called ditthi in Pali. And this means vision, or seeing, knowing. This is seeing what is really there. So it is correct seeing, samaditthi. And when one is aiming at the object, directing the mind in the right way, this is sammasankappa. And then samaditthi. Together with these, this is the wisdom group of the path, panya meganga. With every object that is observed, there's virya, sati, and samadhi, the factors of the samadhi group. And there's aiming and knowing, which are the two factors of the panya part of the path. So 3 plus 2, that makes 5. And this is called Panchangika Mega, the path leading to Nibbana, which has 5 parts. At that moment, the yogis are not actually encountering any opportunity to transgress, to break their sila. So there is not actually the type of sila that avoids doing something wrong. Avoidance or refraining is called virati. So this virati sila, the sila that is there when we actually avoid, refrain from doing wrong in a practical way, this is not there during the moment of practice. But cetana sila, the intention to keep right speech, right action, and right livelihood, this is there on the intentional level. So we can say that the 3 factors of the sila path are there. Or in another way, the type of sila that is called indriya samvara sila, the good moral behavior that comes about through restraining the sense doors, guarding the eye door, the ear door, the nose door, the tongue door, and the mouth. These faculties are all under control. And therefore this too, in another way, this is also called sila. So the 3 parts of the path that make up sila are present, together with the 5 parts of the path that are involved every moment of observation. All the 8 path factors are present. The 3 parts making up the sila group, the 3 parts making up the samadhi group, and the 2 parts that make up the panya group. Therefore, the 8 parts of the path to Nibbana are all there, or the 8 causes for Nibbana are all there. So now, if one reaches this situation, the Buddha said, Yesan kesan hi bhikkhave chataro satipatthana arada. When whoever it is who develops the 4 foundations of mindfulness, that means that every newly arising object, one is observing it. And sometimes that newly arising object will be kaya, physical, and there will be the observation, repeated observation of kaya nupassana satipatthana. Sometimes Vedana will arise and there will be Vedana nupassana satipatthana, the repeated observation of feeling, good or bad. Sometimes the mind types of consciousness will arise, and then there will be repeated observation of the consciousness, chittanupassana satipatthana. when various objects arise, general objects, there will be the repeated observation of Dhammanupassana, Satipatthana. Because one observes one or another of these types of objects, then automatically the Eightfold Path is developed. Arado tesang atangiko mago samadukakiyagami. Whoever develops any one of these 4 foundations of mindfulness, for them this path, arado, it is automatically developed. And what is automatically developed is atangiko mago, the Eightfold Path that Sayadaw has just been speaking about, the 3 trainings of Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. This path is automatically developed. This path is this path is also described as Aryo. And when these factors are complete, then one's physical and verbal behavior is clean and pure. One isn't transgressing. And the word for pure in Pali is Arya. Arya also means pure, and it also means excellent. When the factors of virya, sati, and samadhi are occurring continuously, then the obsessive kilesas have no chance to arise in the mind. The pariyotana kilesas are eliminated. When knowledge arises, then the roots of the kilesas are eliminated. So this path, this Eightfold Path, is pure and excellent. And the way the Buddha spoke was extremely precise and true to what actually happens. The word Aryo, pure and clean, when something is free of dirt, free of defilements, then there's purity and pure and clean. Defilements cause trouble, cause suffering, dukkha, and they make one low. So if one is pure, then if one does not keep sila, then one won't be able to control the mind and develop knowledge. So in this way, one will come to suffering. This path is described as sama dukkakiyagami. Sama means this path is systematic and correct. And gami means that it leads to. So where does it lead to? Kaya means the end of, and dukkha means suffering. This is the systematic path which leads to the end of suffering. And tomorrow, Sayadaw will speak about this in theory and practice. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.